and welcome to Badass Moms, brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory. I'm Nicole Cruz, super busy mommy coach.
Hi, and I'm also in the episode here.
This is my business partner. You want to tell them your name?
My name is Eric.
And he loves jumping into these. Okay, you can go play now.
Yeah.
Okay, watch the drink.
Okay, I'm gonna go play. Goodbye.
Bye, it was nice meeting
See you at
you.
the end of the episode.
Oh, I can't wait.
Hey, thank you for tuning into Badass Moms, again brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory. I'm going to introduce our wonderful guest, Flora Ong, in just a moment. But before I do, I want to let you know that I have one or two, I'm not sure how many, there's one I'm confirming, one-on-one coaching slots open at the moment. And so those of you who have been listening, if you're interested in getting some help to figure out how to thrive as a busy mom, especially as a single mom, those of you in the toughest situations, how to actually get fitness into your day when it's impossible, how to eat healthy, how to manage all of that when it is impossible to do a normal regimen. That's why I'm here. You can apply by going to Super Busy Mommy Coach on Facebook or Instagram and sending me a DM that says Coach Me. I look forward to hearing you. On to the episode. So I have with me today, I'm super excited for this episode actually. I have Flora Ong, who is a dating and relationship coach as well as a matchmaker. She helps high achieving individuals attain success in their love lives by focusing on the subconscious programming and removing blocks that keep them from having the love they really want. Flora, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's really great to have you. And I'm excited for this episode. Dating, I work with a lot of single moms just because I specialize in the toughest circumstances. And those very often are moms who are single. And so my expertise is, fitness and nutrition. But in order to fit that in, we go over everything in their life. Like everything needs to be optimized. And dating comes up a lot. Like that is a big area of yeah, I don't want to like I don't think it's the same thing for everyone, but it's usually something significant for a single mom, whether it's something they're avoiding, whether it's something they really want, whether it's something they're doing but having a horrible experience, whether they're loving it and it keeps them sane. And so I'm really excited to have you on to just kind of like talk through it and let's answer the question, how can you enjoy dating as a mom? Because I'm sure you hear from a lot of moms, like most of the ones I hear from dread it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you get the gamut of responses, but how can you enjoy it? I think it's kind of the same whether you're a single mom or not, but it's really, a lot of it has to do with expectations, right? And so the easy answer is have no expectations. But it's also the hard thing to do, in real life. So I think if you go into it without, expectations, just looking to meet people, just looking to connect, just looking to have, enjoy yourself, then you'll be fine. But if you walk into it looking for an outcome, which is, I would say one of the biggest problems with our whole mindset in general, then you're going to have a hard time. I love talking about it in respect to diet because, I started off, I think I told you this when we spoke last, I started off as a health coach. That's where my actual certification is in, health and life coaching. And so it's kind of like that person that goes on that crash diet because they want to be thin, as soon as possible. But it's the person who is consistent over time that is the one that's actually successful. Right. And it's the same thing with dating. It's people who jump in wanting the outcome of being thin or of, finding a husband or finding a partner. They get hurt a lot, or they tend to just get hurt a lot and disappointed a lot because they walk in thinking oh, well, I'm going on a dating app, therefore I'm going to date someone, therefore we are going to end up in relationship, right? But it's not, the trajectory isn't exactly like that most of the time, and it causes a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, that intuitively makes a lot of sense to me because
Mhm.
when you think about it, that level of compatibility, like life partner compatibility is pretty rare, like it's probably, we only have one of them. And so like to me it makes sense that it probably wouldn't be the first person or second person you go on a date with,
Yeah.
it probably takes some time to find that person. But I've heard a lot of the sentiment you're talking about where it's just like if the person sitting across from you at the dinner table doesn't seem like husband material, the date was a waste and it was a horrible night.
Right, right. I want to comment on this concept of the one, and that there is only one. I think that that's really important too to break down, because I don't believe that there is the one, right? And I don't believe in, I do believe in monogamy, but I don't necessarily believe that, we're looking for one life partner for the rest of our lives. Um, I think that people come into our lives for a time, and as long as we can grow simultaneously together, then they're compatible. But when your life path takes you on a different, in a different direction, they may not be compatible anymore,
Mhm.
right? Or if your growth supersedes theirs by so much, they may not be compatible anymore, right? Because we want to continually grow, we want to continually change, we want to continually become more and more aware and more mindful of ourselves and what's driving us, right? Essentially, the hope, that's the hope, I think, right? But a lot of people don't even think that way, right? They think, okay, I need the house, I need the car, I need the kids, I need the husband, I need, the career, I need these things, right? And they forget that.
But I need to.
Play quietly. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I have two of those. They're just stuck in a YouTube hole somewhere. um, uh, so sorry,
You're saying they want the things. It's
yeah,
like
they want the
the
things, right? And
house,
they
the car, the husband.
exactly. And then they turn around at some point, 10 years in, and they don't even know who they are. And the relationship that they're in isn't satisfying anymore because they're still empty, right? Because they still want more things,
Mhm.
right? And all of the desire for those things is covering up what is a deeper issue on the inside. And food feeds into that just as much as anything else, right?
Mhm. Exactly, which is why things like this come up when I'm doing nutrition coaching.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we'll have to dig much deeper into a lot of the factors that come into this. But
Mhm.
for now, let's talk a little bit about your backstory so people can understand. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it.
Um,
So you started as
so
a health coach, but how did you get interested in dating? What's your dating or relationship situation? How has that changed over time?
So I was married for 14 years, and I got divorced. I got married very young. I got married at 24. My ex-husband was 21 at the time. I was really young. We stayed together for 14 years. And when I got divorced, which was about 5 years ago at this point, um, I hit the new dating market, which I had never seen an app, dating app before in my life, and I suddenly was in this new world of like connecting to anyone at any time, anywhere. I'm sitting in my house like a schlub because I still hadn't done anything about my my health, and I had just gotten divorced and I felt like crap, but here I was chit chatting with people, and like connecting and feeling really good. So it was for me the type of person that I was at the time, which was very disconnected, right? With a lot of life issues going on. Like I was like in the midst of divorce. I was not very healthy. I had lost my job at the time. My dad died of cancer. I had a 6-month-old, or she was, I guess at that point, she was like a year and a half too. you know, and it was an amazing distraction from all of that stuff, right? And it really sucked me in. And on one hand, it provided me with a lot of fun and a lot of confidence that I needed, because I was like connecting now with people and they were finding me attractive, and that felt good. And, you know, as time went on, I was starting to actually go out on dates and meet people in real life. It was like fun, but then that was it, you know? And I was like, but why isn't anything sticking? Like, you know, some people I wasn't interested in, obviously, but then some people I was, and they weren't interested back. And why weren't they interested back? Like, what's wrong with me, right? And then you start taking on, you know, over time, you start taking on like, well, nothing's sticking. Like, there's obviously something wrong with me. Why is this happening? Why does everybody else get to be in a relationship and I can't like find a relationship? And on top of it, the people that I was interested in were completely unavailable, emotionally, you know? And again, it was like, I was seeing these patterns. I was doing this health and life coaching certification. I was very, very aware of what was going on. And I was continuing to make the same mistakes over and over again, you know? And I couldn't figure out why, knowing I shouldn't do this, I still had compulsions to do it. And again, I liken it to like, you know, you're not supposed to eat that donut. No, you're not supposed to eat that donut. Like, you want to lose 10 pounds before summer, right? But it's staring you right in the face, you know? So, so you do it, you know, and eventually I found attachment theory, which, you know, I think we spoke about briefly. And that was an opening into understanding my subconscious drives. And now I've been able, as a result of that work, I've been able to resolve all of these issues, basically, that, you know, that were really difficult for me. Yeah.
So how has your dating life changed from those, you know, initial first couple of years when you just got out of the divorce and, you know, it wasn't as fulfilling as you were hoping, to now that you've put in this work?
Well, you might have to send your son into a different room.
Okay, buddy.
No, I'm kidding. I'll make it PG. No, I was having a lot of fun in the beginning, you know, and
He has trains in his room.
I was having a lot of fun in the beginning, you know, and again, while it was coming from a very needy place, I also still think that I needed that whole experience in order to be where I am today. And quite frankly, I'm a completely different person today than I was in my marriage and back in those years. And I consider that kind of like, you know, my divorce as the, I don't know, like it created this opportunity for me to shift into the new version of myself. You know, and at the time, of course, I didn't see that, right? I didn't know that, but I think a lot of us who get divorced kind of experience that, and we don't even realize how numbed out we were in our marriage. You know, we were just kind of like zombies, continuing, fighting every day, not, you know, like not knowing that there's a way out of that kind of thing. And then, and so you asked how my dating life shifted. Yeah, so I was having a lot of fun. It was casual, but I wanted more, yet I didn't know how to admit that and explain that. This all goes on YouTube, just so I'm clear.
Oh, yeah. He interrupts all the time. I coach busy moms. This is real life. This is
how it is.
Everything doesn't have to be perfect for you to continue going after what's important to you. So,
I love it. I love it. I'm so glad. That is very inspiring for me, because nothing is perfect here. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And then, you know, I really did want relationship. And now, and, you know, the people I was interested in, even, you know, the people I was calling to me were, 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 they say, and I don't know if you've heard the statement, but they say that you call in, you meet people where you're at, right? And when people hear that statement, they think like, oh, you mean like people like that are living the lifestyle I'm living, or people that are, you know, in similar type jobs as I am, or people, but that's not what is really meant by that statement. What's really meant by that statement is that you call people in at the level of your subconscious worth. So,
Interesting. Subconscious worth or
yeah,
work?
worth.
Worth. That's, I hadn't heard that before.
Right. So what it's like, really subconsciously, do you have self-worth? Right. And if you do have self-worth, you're calling in, or the people that you're matching with are healthy, right? And they're well-meaning, and they are not the type of people that, I mean, we're all going to encounter ghosters at this point in life, right? Because it is what it is. But essentially, you will be attracted to people who are healthy and communicative, and, you know, have also a high level of self-worth, you know. But if you have low subconscious worth, or no subconscious worth at all, then you're going to call in those types of people too, you know. And that those relationships are those toxic types of relationships where I'm so in love, but then as intense as the love is as intense as the fighting is, right?
Explains a lot. I won't comment more than they're in present company, but you know, that explains a lot.
Yeah. So
stay in your room. You gotta go.
I don't want.
It's too bad. Gotta go. Gotta go. Gotta go. Okay. This isn't time for you to be here. This isn't one where you can be here. Gotta go play in your room. Go ahead. Go. I'll let you know when you can come out, okay? Love you. He's like, pay attention to me. Pay attention to
always,
me.
right? As soon as you get on doing something, right? And when you're at home, just like being normal, he doesn't care.
Yeah, totally.
Of course, yeah. Remind me how old he is again?
6.
6. My daughter's 6 too.
Yeah, our histories are remarkably similar. We both got divorced 5 years ago. We both got married at 24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's our kids were about the same age at the time when it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, you asked like what's different now than then, is that before I was attracting people that were not great people because I didn't feel great about myself, you know. And now everybody I meet and all the potential around me are really high value people, you know, because I value myself more, and my time and my life, and just myself really at the end of the day, you know. And I trust myself more. And so I don't have the same encounters at all as I was having back then. And nothing changed. I'm still dating on the apps. You know what I'm saying? It's not like suddenly I'm in these new circles or my life is like so different in some way. No, I changed, and my environment changed.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So can you paint a picture of, you know, like what a typical dating experience was like before, and then what a typical dating experience is like for you now?
Well, first of all, before I was only attracted in the beginning, I was only, I make this joke all the time, but it's pretty true, is I was only swiping on people with like abs with their shirts off. Okay. So there was that, right?
Yeah.
There was that section of time. And then, you know, I'm 42, and for a long time, and, you know, I was, you know, my settings were down 10, 11, 12 years younger, and I didn't have a problem with that. And I was more attracted to younger guys, you know? And I had a friend who would tell me, what are you doing? Like, you're falling in love with a 33-year-old. Like, what do you think he's going to marry you? You know? And I was like, shut up. I'm attracted to younger guys, and there's nothing wrong with younger guys. And listen, there absolutely isn't, by no means. But again, where my self-worth was, it didn't matter really how old the guy was, you know, but I was also making my pool less likely for long-term commitments, right? I was dating people who wanted kids. I'm not having any more kids, you know what I mean? Who ultimately wanted kids, you know? I was, yeah. And on top of that, I was dating, it was anybody, because I had no self-worth. So I just needed some external validation, anybody to validate me. So not anybody, right? Because I still had to like the person or be interested in the person for whatever reason, obviously, but anybody that would give me a certain amount of attention would catch my attention, you know? And that's all you really had to do. That's all I really needed, was to get a certain kinds of attention. And then I was into you, you know? And it didn't matter who you were, what you did, like, you know, if you were good to me outside of that, as long as you breadcrumbed me and gave me a little bit of attention, right? You had me on the line, you know, it was that easy. So now because I value my time and myself, you know, I no longer care, does he like me? Right? Not that I'm not interested, but you know, the question is always, do I like him? Do I like that he's only calling me once in a while? Do I like that he's not texting enough, you know? Whereas before it was like, oh my God, I hope he texts me, 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 like on loop for like the whole entire day, you know? Now it's like, I don't, you know, I'm not concerned about that kinds of stuff at all. It's very small and petty, and I've got other things I'm doing, and, you know, I have a purpose, I have goals. It's just a side note. And if it's good, it stays. I'm enjoying it, it stays. And if it's not, it's, you know, it just falls away. Like, I don't even have to do anything about it. It just naturally falls away.
Yeah, just kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, you know. And before I would spend time, and I would like expend energy trying to hold on to these very loose connections, you know, that like somebody was not giving me a lot, somebody was not showing me a lot of attention, but I was like desperate to hold on to it, because for 1 minute he gave me attention. So I knew that I thought I could get that back, you know? Yeah. And I spent a lot of time and energy trying to get that back, and losing myself more in the process.
And then your happiness is dependent on the actions of someone else.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. I mean, no, I thank you so much for being open about that and sharing that, because I know there are a ton of people in the audience who can relate. And then there are other people in the audience who are maybe having the complete opposite experience, where they're just like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Stay away from me. And so, you know, there's a variety of experiences, but I appreciate you being so open and honest about how you were feeling and what you were thinking, because we all go through something like that. If it's not like yours, we all have our own experience and of the traps we get caught in. And, you know, I mean, mine just happened to be very similar to yours. But you know, I think it's so important for us to speak openly about that, so that we can come to a place of not being there anymore.
Right. And also like not judging it either. So what brought me here, and you're talking about the people that are completely on the opposite ends of that, what I do and what I understand now, that there's a kind of subconscious formula that happens, and it's a result of the way that we were raised, right? And that comes in the form of attachment styles and attachment theory. And anybody that's interested could obviously reach out to me, or I mean, there's a book called Attached, which really broke, by Amir Levine with an A in the beginning, that really broke this kind of this conversation open right into the public. because attachment theory has always been around, right? But it's always been related to kids and how, you know, and how they grow up. This book is specific to relationships and how those childhood attachments result in the way that we act as adults. And what for me is very fascinating about it is kind of sort of how formulaic it is, dependent on how you were raised, you know? And so when people come to me and they're like, you know, they tell, like, I can tell pretty quickly what style they are. You take a quiz. I have a quiz on my my Instagram, actually, that anybody could take for free, an attachment
I
style
took
quiz.
it. I recommend it.
And you know, the second you tell me what your attachment style is, I can tell you exactly how you act in relationships, you know. And people are like, oh my God, that's me, that's me, that's me, you know. And it's for me, it was the same thing. When I read the book, I was like, oh my God, like somebody sees me, like I am heard, like I'm not a crazy person, I'm not you know, this isn't all going on in my head. There's something wrong with me, but it's like, so is there with another 25% of the population, you know, because supposedly my attachment style, it's like 25% of the population. So, you know, it just felt like I wasn't alone anymore in this, you know, suffering, because, you know, again, I got divorced, my friends are married, my cousin's married, you know, I'm pretty close with her. And, you know, everybody's looking at me like I'm nuts going through this dating process, you know, and getting upset and obsessed with all these like different guys. And, you know, you start to feel crazy when you're kind of alone in that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. Well, yeah, let's get into the attachment stuff first, and then I'll pick the idea I was just gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
So like let's get into it. What is attachment theory?
Okay, so your attachment style is based on basically the emotional attunement you received as a child. Okay, and emotional attunement refers to whether your like parents or your family life allowed you to experience emotions healthily, right? Validated your emotions, supported your emotional states, repaired with you your emotional states. So, you know, if you were upset about something and angry, they kind of showed you how to like navigate that anger in a healthy way. And that happens, you know, by talking to you directly as well as modeling in the home, right? So that they were able to repair arguments together and have healthy communication around certain things. And the secure kids who grew up in homes like that, where there was proper emotional attunement, they become securely attached adult individuals. So in relationships, they tend to be they're not afraid to communicate their needs or their feelings, generally speaking. They can set boundaries around their life and around the relationship that are healthy and inclusive of the partner without, you know, without creating like a distance of sorts, you know. They communicate well. They're comfortable with their emotions, so they're comfortable expressing their emotions. And so generally they're good. I mean, I want to say in general that we all experience some version of this at different times in our life and different relationships, like all the different attachment styles, right? A secure person might, you know, act differently given a certain relationship they're in, but generally speaking, this is their go-to. And at the core of secure attachment is they understand that they have a responsibility for their partner, right? And they desire to take on that responsibility. And then you have the anxiously attached situation or adult, but that comes from a childhood where the emotional attunement was inconsistent. So maybe sometimes they got it, and for whatever reason, sometimes they didn't. And that created a pattern of like desperation and desire and craving to always have it, because they never knew, is it going to come back? When is it going to come back? Will it ever come back? Right. And for me, I have a primary anxious attachment style, and that is because my parents were immigrants. So when they were around, they were great and they were wonderful, but they were working all the time. So I remember as a kid, I would be sitting on the steps at like 7 o'clock, pre-phone, cell phones, waiting for my mom to come home, and she would go food shopping and not tell us, or not get in touch, in the appropriate time. And I would just be hysterical crying, like, am I ever going to see my mom again, kind of thing. But this was like night after night after night. This wasn't just like one-off kind of situation, And so you grow up as an adult to become, you're probably generally anxious on some level, right? And you are that type. You're the type that is needy in relationship, right? You'd like a lot of attention. You want a lot of reassurance. You like a lot of phone calls. You like a lot of time together. You just always need to be reassured on some level that everything is okay, and you're not comfortable with space and time, and unknown space and time, right? And then it also makes it hard to communicate because you're constantly afraid to lose the relationship. So if you're afraid to communicate your own needs, because if you communicate your needs, you might lose that relationship, right? Also, on the other side of it, it results in people pleasing. So you're always trying to, do for the other person or fix or help so that they stay in your life, right? The other major style is avoidant attachment, which is the complete opposite spectrum of anxious attachment. So what happened to the avoidant child is that their emotional needs were like completely neglected. And they learn to shut down their emotional centers, basically. Like they just completely shut it down. So they don't experience a range of emotions, really. And that can result from, I don't know, possibly having a parent who is just working all the time or completely disconnected from the child. Like I had a client who said that her mom was and her dad were always around, but she was raised by a nanny. So the like emotional need, her emotional needs, that attachment with the parents wasn't there. The nanny was great and wonderful, but that attunement that she needed from her parents wasn't there. So as an adult, you become somebody who's very self-motivated, very, focused on career things, passions, but not on other people at all. You don't seek, you get very triggered by people trying to get intimate with you or close with you. On an emotional level, not to say physical level, but on an emotional level, it's like too much. I've dated a bunch of avoidants, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I also know several avoidants that don't like to text, don't like to call, don't like to be on the phone a lot. Happy to see you once a week, once every 2 weeks, but anything above that maybe is too much. And so you could see how that's like on the opposite spectrum of the anxious style, right? And there's a lot more like nuances on everything, but I'm just talking generally, right? The avoidant person won't stay in relationship for more than 2 to 3 months, may have never had a long-term relationship, probably into some, possibly like a super athlete, or possibly a super gamer, or something like that. And then there's fearful avoidant, which is the smallest percent of the population, and they tend to be kind of came from a chaotic and confused upbringing, generally from abusive homes of some sort, whether it was physical, emotional, mental, sexual abuse, and they basically really want love, but also can't trust it. So they experience both the avoidant and the anxious styles, like constantly changing course, depending on if somebody wants to be close with them, then they push them away. If somebody wants to push them away, then they want to be close. But they basically cannot trust the people they love because that's how they grew up.
That sounds painful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So people can find out which one they are by taking your quiz, and then can that change? What can they do to have better outcomes if they find that they're not they don't have a secure attachment style?
You can absolutely move into what's called earn secure.
Hmm.
And you can move along the spectrum to security. And the thing with this stuff, again, is that when you don't know anything about this and you've never heard of it and you're not like really aware, you act from this place. But once you do know, you can start to recognize your behaviors, right? And recognize the link, and then start to question where it's coming from and what this is really about. Am I really upset that he didn't text me, or do I just not want to be alone right now? Do I just not want to sit with myself? Like, what's really going on here? And then, moreover, what I wanted to say is it is a spectrum. And what I was saying kind of when I started was that we experience on some level all of these ways of being. So it's not 100% fixed. And also you can, in your love relationships, which tend to mirror your parental relationships the most, right? That's why it's so related here. But we can have attachment styles like in career, and we can have kind of an attachment style with our friendships. And, I, for example, am very secure in my friendships, right? I don't have issues at all around that stuff, but I've been very anxious in my love relationships. So yeah, so there's, it can change and switch around, but yes, you can move towards secure, absolutely. But it's a lot of work, right? Yeah.
And so I know that so much of this is subconscious. And when you think of attraction, it's very much like a primal subconscious thing. And so when you're moving towards something more secure, if you're constantly attracted to the wrong person, does that mean you're going to have to live without those fireworks and, sparks and everything? Or will your attractions also change?
Your attractions also change. Because when you change your personal value, your desires change. Right? When you meet your own internal needs, you don't need anybody to satisfy those. Right? That's on the anxious side, right? On the avoidance side, when you can open up to the fact that you do need other people, because ultimately an avoidant person wants relationship, right? They just freeze up when it comes close, right? And they don't know how to move past that like freeze mode, right? They literally go into their dorsal nervous system, right? Which is like a very old part of our nervous system, right? And all of this, on the other side, I mean, like, I want to tell everybody to go to my masterclass because I talk about all this stuff in detail, right? There's a lot to do with the brain, and there's a lot to do with the nervous system components of all of this. Careful with the computer, sorry. And so that's what makes this all so hard and so difficult, because as an anxious person, right, you say you're anxious too, right? You know what that feels like. It's rough, like the anxiety, you feel it, it's like something you have to deal with, right? But with the avoidant person, they kind of on some level are happy on their own, and they have been related a lot to narcissists because they tend to be okay on their own, and they kind of sort of don't need anybody until one day they're like, why am I alone? Why am I 50 and alone? I just spoke to this woman who's like 60 years old, and has never had a relationship.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's intense.
She was attractive. When I heard that, well, because I had spoken to her on email, or not visually, and then I just expected her to be, I don't know what I expected her to be, but when I actually saw her, she was a very attractive woman. There was like nothing wrong with her, like on the outside, but clearly that is just a lot of deep avoidant stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this affects us on such a deep level with something that's so, central to a lot of people's lives.
Well, yeah, I mean, they say there, I don't know the exact statistics. I'm bad at this kind of stuff, but hi. um, but the people who are alone, people who are alone die quicker, right? There's like an actual statistic around that loneliness is, will kill you like 10%, and will take 10 years off your life or something like that, because we literally, physically, physiologically need other people in order to be healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's deep, it's intense, it's, I mean, a core part of our nature.
Right.
So for the moms who are listening to this, there could be a variety of reasons they're dating. And some people could be in non-monogamous relationships and are choosing to date. So for anyone who's dating now, their mother, they have kids, let's talk about some of the logistics. So for people who are recently out of a long-term relationship, I know for me, like you, it was like apps. What do you mean apps? I don't want to get on these dating apps. No, like I want to just go to a bar and meet people. And I remember thinking well, first of all, society gives us all of these messages, right? Like I was 10 years older. I had stretch marks now because I had given birth. The whole idea that mothers are, somehow less desirable other than as a MILF fetish, right? So you have all these messages, and I was like, oh my God, I don't even want to start dating. It's going to be horrible. No one's going to be interested in me. And for a long time, like when I was open to the idea of starting to date again, for a long time, that was the case. Like I didn't get hit on a single time in a year appropriately. I mean, you get those inappropriate, whatever cat call type of thing, but I wasn't even really getting that very much. But the few times I did get hit on, it was very much like skeevy, inappropriate type of thing. And so I really just believe, I'm like, I'm not desirable anymore. Nobody wants me.
But you hear what you're saying, right? That was your belief. Therefore, that's what you were attracting.
Yes, that makes sense. But then when I finally did give in and get on dating apps, because that's what people told me. They're like, no, Nicole, people don't like just hit on you in person anymore. Everyone's on apps. No one does that anymore. If you want that to happen, it's not going to happen. You have to get on the apps. And so finally I did, and it was a completely different story. And they were absolutely right. Like people, I mean, still, I can't remember the last time I was hit on in person. Like I can think of one time in the past few years I was hit on in person. But meanwhile on apps, it's just a completely different norm than it was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so, for people who are just getting into this, like let's walk them through, like, okay, dating in the modern world, one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, so again, like it all leads back to openness and belief system in general, right? So if you're going to you're going to come into the apps with a negative attitude, you're going to have a negative result. If you are going to go in and think that every guy is sexual, you are going to find every sexual guy on there that is going to want to only, be casual, right? That's what you think you're getting into. It really has everything to do with mindset. And I don't only know this because I know this, but I also know this because I have personally experienced all the different variations of it myself, where in the beginning I was so open, so like excited about the experience. It was so fun for me, and then later on, I became like jaded, and my experience was different. And then, it just, everything is how you see it. So I know without a shadow of a doubt that it can be fun, and it can be like flourishing, and it can give you confidence, and, it could feel great. And I also know it can feel really shitty, you know, and like one note, and you're not getting anything out of it. So that's why my first thing, the first question you asked me, I said, what's the one, I think you said like, what's the one piece of advice or something like that? And that,
What's the difference between the moms you enjoy it and the moms you don't?
right. And then, really it's about, that's why it is about expectations, right? Because when you go in expecting to find the one, like we talked about, which is there really the one, there's the one for the time, but that time changes, hopefully you're changing with time, and you're not just stagnant and standing still, and so, yeah, so if you don't go in there with like crazy expectations, and it's a tool that you use side by side with other things that are fulfilling your life, it can be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
great.
totally can be fun.
Yeah.
I can second that. I've
Right.
had plenty of fun. And like what you're saying about not having expectations resonates and makes sense with me too, because I feel like when I speak with a lot of other women I know who will just get really, they'll take it very personally if they're ghosted, or if they like someone and they don't text them back, or if something doesn't go anywhere after a couple months. And I feel like for me, the reason I can enjoy it so much is because I know that's going to happen. That's part of the whole process of meeting people, and it doesn't get to me as much. And I feel like you're right. That makes a huge difference from the conversations I've had.
Yeah, because I was in that place where I would get personally offended, that somebody, like when I first got on the apps, and I was talking, you chat back and forth with somebody, and we'd be in the midst of a conversation, and then they would just drop off, and I couldn't comprehend that. Even that, I couldn't comprehend that. It's like we were just talking. Where'd you go? Are you coming back, or did we finish our conversation? I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Did I say something? Do you not like me anymore? What's wrong with me?
Yeah, like, and I couldn't, because I had no life at the time, right? I kind of explained, I kind of like lost everything, and I was just like by myself taking care of my child at home. I couldn't understand that people had other things to do too, and this was just kind of like a side note in their lives. For me in that moment, it was kind of everything. So if you treat it that way, it's going to be very disappointing. But if it's just like a tool, maybe I'll meet somebody, maybe I'll go out, I'll get a drink, I'll meet another human, not necessarily my husband or my next boyfriend. It can be very very, very cool and very fun.
Yeah, I've met really great friends on dating apps.
Exactly.
People who are probably going to be in my life for the rest of my life, not as a husband, but in my life,
Right. And that's the thing too. It's, the way that we're living today, especially during COVID, I don't even think it's fair to call them dating apps, to be honest with you, because it creates a certain, that creates a certain expectation, right? So I think there's something even wrong in the moniker of the whole thing, right? If they were called connection apps, meeting apps, or something like that, it would have a completely different context, and you wouldn't be putting so much pressure on each and every date.
I love that. I wish they would do that, because I feel like, my experience, like 90% of the time on a first date is, wow, this person is awesome. And I feel no spark at all, but they're really lovely.
Right.
I'm not feeling what they are hoping I'm going to feel, or what, we're supposed to feel on a date.
Right.
That would just alleviate all, like, I love that.
Right. Yeah. So if you think of it like that, right, if you change that, if you reframe that in your own brain, right, then you have a completely different experience going into each and every date.
Yeah. And it takes the pressure off for it to turn into something romantic if the spark's not there, as opposed to if
Right.
you're having a random conversation, people don't expect, that they're going to kiss you by the end of the night. So there's no pressure. That
Right.
would be much better. I advocate for you making that. I will be the first person on it. I feel like Clubhouse is turning a little bit into that. Like there are so many singles conversations on Clubhouse, but it's not that same kind of pressure where if you talk to someone, they're expecting that that's it. Where, now that's it. You might be my next wife or husband.
Right, right. Because it's more realistic, and because there's so many other people there too. You're not under some sort of like facade that they're not talking to anybody else, right? You actively see them speaking to other people, while you're in the same room with them. So it's like a mixer in some, on some level where you have access to the other 200 people in this room, they have access to the other 200 people in this room, and we are all just kind of mixing, chatting, and getting to know, each other.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And that brings up something else,
Mhm.
like expectations, right? I feel like
Mhm.
to a certain degree, there's probably just not one right answer. People are allowed to have different expectations, but perhaps there are, norms or, ways that are considered generally appropriate to behave. And so, like you said, dating apps, just because someone's chatting with you, it's not bad if they're chatting with like 5 or 10 other people or whatnot. So what are kind of the expectations, and at what point do you think generally, again, I'm sure it's okay to have different expectations, but at what point do you generally think it's about time to start talking about what you expect as far as things like seriousness or exclusivity, or, that they're not, with a million other people besides you, or whatever the
Mhm.
case may be?
There's no single answer to this stuff. In my course, in my work, what I do with people and for people is get them to understand themselves so well that they get to make their own rules about what works for them and what makes sense for them. um, because it's going to be that timeline is going to be different for not only every person but also every couple, right? Some couples will move very slowly, get to know each other over time, become friends, eventually become romantic, possibly. Some couples, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Some couples will meet, sparks of fire, and they never leave each other's side. And who knows what happens like down the line, kind of thing. But that happens too. Some people, there, and every variation between, really, right? So how can I tell you, like, it's impossible for me to give you one answer. And that's the thing. People come to me, to dating coaches, to uh, to anything, and they want one answer. They just want an answer. How long do I wait before I sleep with him?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter, because if you don't feel good about yourself on the inside and you sleep with him on date one, you're going to feel like shit. And if you wait 6 weeks and he leaves on week 4, you're going to hate yourself anyway. And you're going to think it's your fault that he left because you didn't sleep with him. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what the action that you take, doesn't matter. How you feel about yourself is what matters, because it won't matter. That action, as long as it doesn't make you feel bad, or doesn't change your level of self-worth, you will continue to take the correct steps afterwards to uh, sorry, you'll continue to take the correct steps afterwards that will continue to show your level of self-value, right? But if you sleep with the person and it makes you feel shitty, like if you sleep with somebody early on, this happens to women a lot, right? You sleep with somebody early on, then you start to feel guilty about it, or you start to feel bad about yourself, and then you show up with lower self-value afterwards, right? So if you know yourself to be that type of person, then don't sleep with them early, right? But if you know that you can sleep with them and that doesn't change how you feel about yourself at all, and the relationship continues, and then he doesn't act right and you can still walk away, fine. But if you become attached because you've slept with him, now you feel shitty about yourself. So you're just like hoping he'll stay. And, you know, he does something shitty and you forgive him because you've already slept with him. And now you don't want to go and find somebody else to sleep with. You know what I mean? It just becomes like this cycle, and the cycle all leads back to how you feel about yourself at the end of the day.
And I love that, you know, like the idea that there's no wrong answer. And then also, I guess that means that on the other side, there's no wrong answer too, you know, because I feel like one thing I hear a lot is, I mean, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, I hear a lot of like men bashing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's like, oh, well, these guys don't want relationships. And I'm like, but they're allowed to not want relationships as
Mm-hmm.
long as they're honest about it. And
Right,
they
right.
tell you that at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
Like, why? Like, I would be like, thank you for telling me that.
Mhm.
Like, why be upset about it, you know?
Right.
Or like if guys are looking for something, you know, sexual, or even some
Uh-huh.
people are on, you know, like they're looking for someone to satisfy, to like, explore fetishes or whatever.
Right,
I'm like,
right,
oh,
right.
I really hope you find that. And
Yeah.
maybe that's something I can fulfill, or maybe it's
Uh-huh.
not. But I think it's great to have like a kind of a culture where we're all comfortable knowing what our own needs are and communicating them, and we can all appreciate and respect other people's needs and desires.
Exactly, you know. And that, you know, it's funny like that you say that, because that conversation comes up a lot for me, that oh my god, can you believe this guy? He, you know, it just says that he just wants sex. And I was like, that's like the best thing I've ever heard. Like, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Because
that's
now
great.
you get to decide, do you want the same thing or not? You don't? Okay, you know, swipe left. You do? Fantastic. Go, but know what you're getting into. You know what I mean? Know exactly what you're getting into. He's told you, you know, that's all he's looking for, you
Which
know?
I think is the ethical way of approaching that
Right.
situation.
Mhm.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, I give those guys kudos, honestly.
Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 So, and I think, you know, that is for me, that's positive side of the dating apps, if people are being honest, of course, right?
Mhm.
That, you know, they do have those check boxes. Are you looking for something serious? Are you looking for something casual? You don't know yet, right? I think Bumble has those specifically. So it is helpful, right? Because you do kind of you can match up with somebody who has similar goals as you.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great. And I think also the more we bash certain desires over others, the more people don't want to admit them in themselves, and then they hide them, sometimes even from themselves, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
you
Right.
end up with people who aren't, you know, who say they want one thing when really they want something else, which doesn't help
Mhm.
anybody.
Right, right, right. And that, you know, that's that part of us that is afraid to, because we are so attached to the outcome, that having this person stay, we become afraid of saying what we really want, you know, because then they might leave, and then we're all alone again with ourselves, who we don't really even like anyway.
Mm. Wow, that yeah, that's deep, but it's
Right.
so yeah, I mean, that's really true. Um, yeah, no, you've brought up so many great points about expectations. Oh, there was one that was just in my mind, and I completely, I'll come back to it. I'm sure it'll occur to me again. But what about, I know you said there's no right answer to any of this, but what advice do you have for someone when they're thinking about um, when they want to introduce the kids, how they want to involve the kids, should they involve the kids, should they not?
Um, I think again, it has to do with how you feel, right? So if you feel like you can introduce the kids, and that doesn't create some sort of bond, connection, attachment for you with this person, and you can still let this person go. So I want to say this. I have one rule and only one rule. Okay. The only rule that I have is you have to be willing to lose the match, the partner, the boyfriend, the husband, always in life. You have to always be willing to lose the other person in respecting yourself and your needs first, always. Right. So
Mhm.
if I don't care if you're with somebody for 10 years, if things change, you know, this is what I'm saying. Like, the one doesn't necessarily exist, because if you've changed and this person isn't meeting your needs anymore, you need to reassess, and you need to decide whether this is the relationship that is going to help you to continue to grow and push your life forward in the way that you want it to go. And so my only rule is that you always have to be willing to lose. So if meeting your kids is going to make you feel like a greater attachment to this person, and it's still early days and you're not 100% clear on where the relationship is going, then don't introduce them to your kids. Why complicate the situation? Maybe you're the person that needs a commitment first, some version of commitment, whatever that is for you, before you can introduce them to your kids, right? Or maybe you don't have any connection with them. That doesn't mean anything to you. When you've kind of told me that you're like this, right? Like they're all just friends at the end of the day. The fact that they've met my son or not doesn't mean that, now they have to stay, or now, they're like another parent, and your kid can see them come and your kid can see them go, and like all your other friends, right? So if you have that level of attachment to it and it's totally fine for you, then do it that way. That's also fine, right? That's why there's no single answer to questions like that, because again, it all comes down to how you feel about, and is it going to hurt you in some way, and can you move past that hurt in a healthy way? There is a certain level, I want to say, that is also important, that another really big portion of this is like, we spend so much time, and our subconscious really is in charge of not allowing us to be hurt, right? Even though it gets us hurt a lot of the times because it's using old coping mechanisms from childhood, right? But essentially what it's trying to do is trying to stop you from being hurt. So we will do things like not introduce our kids for, until we're getting married, because then we've created some sort of like concept of safety that, well, now I got a ring, so now I own him, or, so now it's okay, now it's safe, but the reality is you're probably going to get hurt again, So you can live life trying to protect yourself and trying to control, all the pieces so that you mitigate that hurt, or you can just live, enjoy the experience, and maybe you'll get hurt, but that's also part of life.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, and I personally, I can't even think of, getting attached or serious with somebody, like considering them seriously, until I've seen them with my son. Like, I feel like that's like so important to me. And I'm not saying everyone I introduce to my son, it's like a screening process to see if they're going to be, no, it's not like that at all. It's just, he happens to be there. They have, if it'll just happen casually one day, usually, like without me even thinking about it. But like, if they're not instant best friends, and I've had this happen where like I've seen someone with my son and it was like, this is never going past casual. Right. Because I just didn't like what I saw, and I couldn't imagine, and this is me personally. I feel like for me, I wouldn't want to be in the situation where I have become attached to somebody and I do imagine we have a future together, and then I see something I don't like when I introduce them to my son, because I feel like for me that would be so much harder, and getting over in the beginning, it's like, I don't know, that works. That's like you said, I guess I'm the only person I know who does that. I don't know anybody else, but I feel very comfortable with it, and it's been helpful for me. So
right. But that's the thing. It's like, you feel comfortable with it. It's not an issue for you. The only time it probably became an issue is when you started talking to other people and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you do that.
Yeah. And no one said it just like that, but you can hear when people talk about it, they're like, oh, I would never introduce my kids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay, guess I'm the weird one here.
Something wrong with that? But it's not. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you're, again, it's all about how you feel about about it, you know, and if you feel fine about it and it's working for you and nothing, boats are getting rocked and you're not emotionally like drained from it, you know, then it is fine.
Yeah, totally. My only thing, and again, this is me personally, but I wouldn't, you know, now, especially he's older to, you know, get more attached to people and understand,
Right.
I wouldn't want to bring someone around often enough where it'll be really difficult for him if it does end, unless there's a commitment.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
That's,
Yeah.
you know, that's just how I've handled it. When he was younger, it didn't make as much of a difference because he was like, you know, who cares? He didn't-
He didn't remember. You know, I will say this, I do know, like I personally in my divorce contract have an agreement that we can't introduce anybody till 6 months.
Hmm.
So, you know, we did that in benefit of like you know, thinking about the children, not letting them get attached to people that maybe were going to be in and out of our lives. And so, you know, I'm sure that there are a lot of other single moms out there that have similar parts of their divorce, you know, agreements. So that could also just kind of be like a buffer, you know, it kind of takes that decision portion of things away from you and makes it a little bit easier to date and not have to worry about that as a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just goes back to, it's great to have a culture where all of us can figure out what's best for us and our families and then respect it in other people.
Right. Exactly. If only we could all do
If
that.
only everyone could do that, it would be great. We cannot end this episode without talking about how the attachment styles get attracted to people.
Okay.
Because I find this fascinating.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. So what happens, you know, what you're alluding to is the avoidant loop. The anxious avoidant loop is what it's called. And when what happens is that the anxious person is used to inconsistent love, basically, or inconsistent emotional attunement, right? So they're used to getting it a little bit, then it being pulled away, crying, wanting, getting it a little bit, then it being pulled away, wanting. The avoidant person does not like to be, doesn't like when somebody is pushing them too much, yet they doesn't, you know, they get I'm losing my words, we've been talking for a long time. they get triggered when somebody wants to pull them close emotionally, right? Or get intimate with them on an emotional level. So but the avoidant person, who on the outside is very kind of doesn't seem like they have a lot of emotions, deep on the inside they want love like everybody else, they're human, they need and they want it, they just literally do not know how to go about it, right? Because they don't have emotional, they never had emotional, anybody show them how to deal with those emotions and how to have those emotions and be okay with them, right? Mm-hmm. So they just stop it, right? It just physically, not mentally, right? Not cognitively, like physically their body shuts down in one way or another. Two of my avoidant boyfriends would sweat profusely when I tried to cuddle with them. You know, like you have to get off of me, I'm hot, I can't handle this kind of thing.
Wow.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And and they would like pouring, you know, like kind of sweat stuff, you know. That's what I mean when it's physical, right? And doesn't mean that everybody that sweats when you're close to them is avoidant, but it also does make sense that would, you know, that's how it shows up sometimes, you know.
I've seen like body language completely change,
right?
Like person's normal demeanor just completely
Uh-huh.
change in an intimate situation, like
Yeah,
they're a totally different person.
Yeah. And you're like, what is going on? But it's their own, it's their coping mechanism, their physiological coping mechanism, in order to stop them from feeling anything. But they don't even know that's happening. They don't even know that that's what is actually going on. And so very deep that they just think like, oh, I'm just high, get off. Like,
wow,
I'm hot, right? And that's how it comes across. And you're like, but I want to cuddle, you know? And they're like, but I'm hot, get off of me, you know? So anyway, this avoidant person really wants love. This anxious person is like, I love you, I want to love you, I initially, right, in the early stages. And the avoidant person is kind of attracted to that openness and that extra emotion, because they don't have it, and they see and they want this love, and they see that they could potentially, they see that in this other person. They get together, but the avoidant person cannot handle the overspill of emotion that the anxious person has, and the needs and the desires of constantly wanting to be together, constant reassurance. But they, at this point, they're in love, right? The chemicals have hit, the attraction has happened, that crazy chemistry went off. So the avoidant person goes away, is like, back off, like, stay away from me. They leave. The anxious person's like, come back, come back, come back, come back. The avoidant person does not. The anxious person gives up and goes into their own hole of misery, like with ice cream and a movie. Right? And just when the anxious person is like, fine, I give up on this, the avoidant person's like, oh, hey, hey, I'm ready now. I'm good. So in my personal avoidant relationships, it's about a 2-week cycle for the avoidant person to, come around and, and like for their what do you call it, their nervous system to calm down enough, and then for them to be ready, as long as I'm not being overly pushy, or, I wasn't being overly pushy at the time. But but you can see how two people that have completely different emotional needs, that get together and fall in love, have a very toxic relationship as a result of this connection. And it happens very, very often, because supposedly, and again, I don't know that there's like hard evidence behind this, but I think it says it actually in the book attached, that most secure people tend to end up in relationships. And most of the people on dating apps, this is not a good sell for dating apps, but a lot of people on dating apps are anxious or avoidant. And so they find each other a lot. And there's a lot of kinds of toxic relationship stuff that ends up happening as a result. And I can say that in my experience, like if I have to think back on a lot of the people that some of the secure people that I've met didn't stay on the app a long time. You know what I mean? They ended up in relationship, right? And then there are those people that you see, because I've primarily dated on the apps for the last 5 years. Then there are those people that you see that are on the apps like just all the time. Like 5 years later, there's that same person. They're still there, and they never really left. Maybe they left for like a little bit, but then they're still there. So that was like a tangent, but yeah.
Really interesting.
But yeah, that's the avoidant, that's the anxious avoidant loop that ends up happening. And it is, what did I call it last time? Trauma bonding, right? Because it's like our childhood shit. It's not us speaking to each other that's really bonding. It's our subconsciouses that are bonding. Our subconscious traumas are bonding together and trying to solve our childhood shit through each other, right? Because if the anxious person gets the avoidant person to stay, then they will feel they will feel validated, right? I finally got that love that I was dying for from childhood to stay with me. Finally made it stay, therefore I'm worthy. Right? And the avoidant is trying to find that love too, right? And if only they could access those parts of themselves, then they too would be like, then they'll be okay also, right? But all of all of these coping mechanisms we've discussed kind of stop it from really actually happening.
So should anxious people be with other anxious people and text each other 80 million times a day and then everyone would be happy?
Maybe. Maybe.
Avoidant people just find other avoidant people and they can see each other 3 times a year and be fulfilled.
So avoidant people won't even make it past go because neither one's going to call the other one back. Anxious people don't tend to be attracted, generally speaking, to other anxious people because it's too close for comfort. They see it and they don't want, like, they in their head want somebody who's going to be there all the time with them, right? Like, again, it's in your cognitive brain, you want a healthy relationship, but your subconscious is familiar with the up and down, the inconsistency of love, the in out, the I'm here for a minute, I'm gone now, I'm here. So the subconscious seeks the familiar and the avoidant gives the anxious the familiar.
That now I'm questioning whether or not I'm anxious, because every relationship I've had in adulthood has been with someone else who's very much attached like that. Like, we text each other 8 million times a day, we do like everything together, and that just seemed to work.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're also anxious. I mean, listen, you can just be falling into healthy relationships that work, and because you have anxiety does not mean you necessarily have anxious attachment, although the two do tend to go together. Anxious attachment is triggered only when like that avoidant thing hits. So, like those people that are like, how come I like him? Only like I didn't like him, and then when he pulled away, then I liked him. Like, that's anxious attachment at its core. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I feel like I end up meeting like attracted to a lot of people like that and bonding with a lot of people like that, but it usually I guess it stays more casual, like it doesn't get to the point of being in a relationship. Who knows?
maybe there's something to explore there, We'd have to talk more.
Interesting. All right. Well, I mean, this is so much fun. I feel like I could just keep talking to you about dating forever. I don't think he would allow that.
Clearly not.
But I mean, it's just so interesting and it's such valuable information to have. And I just want to like drill, like for those moms who are maybe in the place I was at where it was like, oh my God, no one's ever going to want me. Or for people who are thinking this is going to be horrible, like this can be a rewarding and enjoyable and fun experience. And no, it will not always be fun. I don't care how wonderful, how sexy you are. Yes, you'll get ghosted sometimes. Yes, relationships will fizzle out. Yeah, not everything will work out, but it could be just like overall an amazing experience. And I just hope that moms, after hearing this, have some hope, have realistic, healthy expectations based on what you said. And maybe some who are, wanting something like this will take the first step. And maybe some who've had very unfulfilling, relationship experiences and dating experiences will contact Flora Ong and take her survey and, but no, take the information and use it to recognize some of our own patterns and get to a healthier place.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, let's hope. I do want to say, if you don't mind, that I am running a group, and I don't know when this is going to air, but I'm launching my group program, which is starting on March 24th. And that's a 6-week program that will cut through a lot of this subconscious stuff that we've been talking about and allow you to date without expectations. Without that level of expectation anyway. Yeah, I also run typically a free masterclass that runs at least once a month. And it's called Relearn to Date based on your attachment style. So there's so much more information there, like in detail about the nervous system, the brain. And then, and they could always go to my Instagram, which is @redolove, and take my attachment style quiz, which will give a whole lot of information.
Yeah, totally. And definitely take the attachment style quiz. I thought it was very interesting. And your website's on there too?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and all that information can be found on the website, which is www.redolove. Redo.love. Why am I? Yeah, it's redo.love. Oh my God. Please edit that out. My brain just like completely blanked. www.redo.love. .love is the extension. There's no .com.
Yeah, which I love. I had no idea that that existed.
I
So,
know it's. I had to buy it when I found it. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting that one.
yeah, that's amazing. Okay, yeah. So everyone get in touch with Flora, and thanks again for being here. I'm sure we'll be in touch. I'll be dropping into your clubhouse discussions or
Definitely.
rooms, whatever they call them. I'm still new at that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And get in touch if you're struggling.
definitely will do.
Okay.
And thank you all for okay, I guess Eric's gonna close this out. Go ahead. So thank you for listening to Badass Moms.
Thank you for listening to Badass Moms and
Brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory.
well, I need to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm glad I could see you at the end of this episode.
Oh, me too. I'm glad I get to say goodbye.
Thank you, Eric, my wonderful, wonderful, talented business partner. Thank you for listening to Badass Moms, brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory. Once again, if you're interested in fitness and holistic health coaching for moms in the toughest situations, you can find me at superbusymommycoach.com or on Facebook and Instagram at superbusymommycoach. And if you are a holistic practitioner or you're looking for a holistic practitioner, make sure you go to holistictherapiesdirectory.com to share what you do with the world or find the perfect holistic practitioner for you. And I'm telling you, they have everything from spiritual healers to integrative medicine doctors, I'm sure dating coaches. So whatever you're looking for, make sure you find it there. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time on Badass Moms.
Bye.
Bye.